Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Knock On Podcast, brought to you by the good people at Zero Tackle. And Dan, a quiet weekend of rugby league for you and I, but that didn't stop the news firing in thick and fast. What's been happening?
Nothing, mate. It's going to be a really quick show.
Well, let's go home.
No one ever. We've got some breaking news. It looks like your favourite and mine, Brad Fittler, will be named the new Kangaroos coach, with Mal Meninga all but certain to join the Perth Bears. I have my thoughts, Terry. I'm going to throw to you, and then I'm going to demand you be quiet for 17 minutes as I rant, because this is dumb.
I thought Fittler was great in the Origin arena.
For Queensland.
Yeah, look, it was always going to be someone like him, right? Like, you've seen ambitious coaches like Walters used the Queensland gig to get himself the Broncos job, and it didn't work out. We've seen Michael Maguire use a great series for New South Wales, and he's gone to Brisbane as well, followed in Walters' footsteps, and you can't tell me that Billy Slater doesn't have eyes on the prize at the Melbourne Storm. It was always going to be someone. If it wasn't Fittler, it was going to be Daly, and if it wasn't Daly, it was just going to be someone else. You're not going to be able to lure a guy who can get a guaranteed gig at another NRL club. You're going to be looking for the part-timers who still want to do their radio shows and still want to do their Foxtel. And you know what? Fittler's going to a scenario where he probably can't lose, and he shouldn't lose. So, he's got the best rugby league nation at his dispense. Yeah, sure. Good news, bad news. I don't know. You're never going to get a Bellamy. You're never going to get someone who wants to be an NRL coach to go and do the Kangaroos job. So I don't think you're ever going to be happy with who it is that's named. And I think Meninga was great because he was so dominant in the State of Origin setup, and then he went to Australia and he's been so dominant for Australia. And I know he's lost one series. I think he only lost one series for Queensland as well. It's always going to be a bit part coach, Dan. It's always going to be a bit part coach.
I don't hate what you're saying at all, in that you're exactly right.
Hate the man, though.
You're going to get the week to week. But the man who he's rumoured to have beaten for the job is Cameron Smith, who I would appoint yesterday. I cannot believe they've gone to Brad Fittler, who had the best talent outside of the Queensland domination available for New South Wales, and then backed up and lost to a team with Brenko and Edric Lee. With the greatest respect to them, that Queensland team was a meme. They were about $6, which is the furthest we've ever seen an Origin team. We know better than to rule Queensland out, but any other coach wins that series 3-0, 4-0 even. It should have been that dominant. I think that as soon as we saw a decent coach come in Madge Maguire, they overturned, the mother of all losses. So let's be honest. Suaalii gets sent off and it was game over in Origin, as it should be, and I'm not blaming the send-off. It was a send-off. But we saw 2 games 13-13. It wasn't even really that close. I know the decider technically was, but it wasn't that close. We've seen early on, the Origin has started. So I'm just closing some windows. I'm copping lots of late messages. New South Wales are pretty dominant in that first game. Should have been a 30-point win. I don't rate Billy Slater, but he beat the pants off Brad Fittler, who's now going to get the top job in. It has to be Cameron Smith. You put Cameron Smith in, you give him a 10-year contract, and you say, cool, it's your job. Because he will do Channel 9. He will do the radio. He will write. He's a brilliant football mind. I want him in charge, not a bloke who... Look, I've met Brad Fittler, and I love him as a dude. He's always great fun. He was always super polite. He was funny. He was witty. But he can't coach. And New Zealand are coming up, and you got Samoa that are coming up, and Tonga are right there, and England have got the best side. They're about to name the best side they've named in a long, long time. You want to put the best footballer of all time there, or you want to put Brad Fittler, who himself is a very good footballer, who's lost an Origin series to the Queensland Cup version of the Maroons. I don't know who's making this decision, but I want him on the show next week to explain why they're trying to kill my enjoyment of rugby league.
I mean, how often do the Kangaroos play every year? Like, are they going to be playing?
Imagine him going to England and doing barefoot over there in the snow.
They're going to England. The game's going to be on at 2:00 in the morning. Just don't watch it.
I can't do that. It's rugby league.
Fair enough. Look, I hear you, right? I I don't I don't see how they could appoint Cameron Smith, because Cameron Smith has coached the same amount of games as you and I. So I don't see how they could turn around and go, "Hey, like, this is the most illustrious job in rugby league," because technically it is. Playing for your country is the most, that's the step. It's your club, it's your state, it's your country. Um, I don't know how you can go to a guy who's never coached and say, "The job's yours," right? The next step is to make Cameron Smith the assistant coach.
I would be okay with that as long as Brad Fittler has no say in selection, or
Running
anything
the
leading up to.
team, calling it,
Yeah.
but
He
it
he does the media stuff.
yeah, it's gonna be Freddie, but yeah, look, what like and I'm on the record multiple times as saying that as I've gotten older, Origin and international football means shit to me these days. I don't really care about it. I'm not as passionate as you, right? Like, be honest, you and I did Rugby League Outlaws the other night, and I didn't even know who the Queensland injuries and selection, and it wasn't until like 15 minutes before the show started that I knew that Daly Cherry-Evans was going to get thrown out of his chair. Um, you want to talk the 26, 27 rounds of NRL. I'm all over it, but yeah, just look, Fitler, sure. I mean, to tell you this, I'm an avid England fan, and we know this. We know I go for England. I don't know who the England coach is. I couldn't even tell
No,
you who the captain is at the moment. I just don't care.
no, me neither. But I do, and I'm ashamed of the country to see Brad Fittler. But moving on, mate. All the talk this week, even though they didn't play, was about the Bulldogs because they've signed Lachlan Galvin. We've seen him and his ridiculous haircut all over the news. We've seen, well, when you can get in past Danny Wilder's huge ears and head, been named in the 23 this week and won't play. Or will he? This sucks because we want to sit here and say he's been named for New South Wales Cup, or he's going to play 7, or he's going to play in the centres, or he's going to play lock, or he's going to play hooker, he's going to do this. We can't do any of that. We can only speculate. Damn you, Cameron Ciraldo. What do you think happens?
I thought that this would happen. From the get-go, I thought, you know what, they're gonna name him, and they've named him at the number 23, and then the first drop's gonna come, and lo and behold, Lachlan Galvin's gonna be there. We're not gonna know what's happening until 4 o'clock on Sunday, which is a game of chess and checkers all in one from Cameron Ciraldo. I fully expect Lachlan Galvin to get a spot on the bench, and I've just quickly brought up the interchange bench. They've got Bailey Howard, Harry Hayes, Apoy, or Kurt Warren, and I think you could say that someone's gonna drop out of the team, and Galvin's gonna be in there. I don't know who it is, but eventually he's gonna be in the halves. Um, you might as well rip the Band-Aid off now, but, you know, on a side note, it could be Cameron Ciraldo just turns around and cuts him first cab off the rank and says, "Next week, young fella, you wanna be here, you wanna earn it, prove to it in training." Um, yeah, I look, I've got a lot of time now after seeing the Lachlan Galvin interview where it was his words, and he was saying that it's not Benji. I had nothing against Benji. I had nothing against Jerome. I didn't go, we didn't hang out. I didn't go for sleepovers, blah, blah, blah. This is about me. This is my development. I met with Parramatta and I met with Jason Riles. And I met with the Dogs and I met with Cameron Ciraldo. And Cameron Ciraldo is the person to take my game to the next level. I like that from him, and he's backing himself, and the Bulldogs are backing him, but we've just got to play it out now. I fully expect that he's going to be named in the 17 to run out against the Eels on the weekend. Just where? I don't know.
See, it sucks for shows like this, but I think this is the storyline that will dominate
Mm.
those fan bases. Anyways, I fully expect him to be there. I think he'll come in off the bench. I guess Hayward's the unlucky one. I think I don't know out
I
of
don't
that
know.
group.
Bailey Hayward's so good. I think
He's been
Harry
really
Hayes
good.
might be there.
Yeah, I don't know how you carry all three. Well, anyways, they'll figure it out. That's why Seattle gets paid the big bucks and we don't. I need this to happen because the fact that he's playing Parramatta when it looked like Parramatta had signed him is just too delicious to ignore. The rugby league fan in me wants that to happen. But I would also not be shocked if he says, he's got a slight, his knee's not great. He's just going to sit this week out. I definitely wouldn't be playing in New South Wales Cup. I think they play that afternoon before, so he'd still cop the Parramatta fans. So naming him there is probably pointless. Maybe he goes in as as 18th man, and they say, "Oh, he was close, but not quite." All reports are that he's impressed with his training, etc. I think he had to after the way he left, and I know what happened and's been said compared to what really happens, probably a bit, who knows which way it goes. So I think a week will do him good, but I really, really want him to play because I think it'll be a great storyline. I just can't see him going in at 6 and them telling Toby Sexton, "Hey, you've led us to, first. We've named you for the big game this week. 40,000 tickets pre-sold, and on the day you're out for a kid that we signed mid-season." That'd be a horrible precedent to set.
Sport's a cutthroat industry though, Dan. Like you're always trying to get better. You're always looking for that next person to get better, right? Like if someone's there on the market who wants to join your club, like I'll give you a classic example because I don't know if we're talking about him. To be honest, I haven't seen the run sheet, but Payne Haas is on the market, and if they turn around and said, "Hey, Cronulla can sign Payne Haas, but it means Tom Hazelton's out the door," I'm getting on my knees for Payne Haas. They'll get on their knees for Lachlan Galvin. Toby Sexton won't see out the year.
Completely fair. Speaking of a player that won't see out the series, well, Queensland are reportedly going to move on from their pick and stick. It's easy when you're winning and you're full of immortals, say those north of the Tweed. Corey Horsburgh, supposedly coming in for game 2. Absolute gimme. Great pick. Love it. Bo Fermor and Trent Liero are the two that look like they might be dropped. I don't like that.
No, I think the one that should be dropped is Jeremiah Nane. Bo Fermor should start, and Horsburgh should be on the bench. Oh, Liero was good. He had, he was good impact, good charges. I think he was probably the best of the bad bunch for Queensland off the bench, and I think he was probably the best of the bad bunch for the Queensland forwards as well, which is, when you've got Tino and you've got Pat Carrigan, and as I said, you've got Jeremiah Nanai. I think if Nanai plays game 2, he can consider himself really, really lucky.
Mm. I agree. I can't believe Liero. Like, I didn't think they should pick him because I had Horsburgh instead of Liero. So I get the change in that respect, but also, like, he was really good the other night.
Yeah.
And he's been really good for Melbourne. So if he goes in and plays well, now people are saying, "Oh, Bo Fermor didn't do anything." He got like 7 minutes or whatever it was. He was thrown on when the game was done. Now I know the scoreline looked close, but it wasn't close. New South Wales should have won that game by 30. If they kicked well, they would have. I can't believe they're not talking about dropping Mo Footawaka for a start with his 4 runs. I don't think Lindsay Collins has earned his role. I would be shocked. Mate, I would be picking Horsburgh and I'd be picking Bullymore. And I'd say to the rest of them, you got this weekend to decide. But it wouldn't be Bo Fermor I'd be tapping on the shoulder. Now, Nane, who you mentioned before, missed a ridiculous amount of tackles on the night. Hasn't been particularly good for the Cowboys, although played pretty well against the other night against the Tigers. So there'll be changes, and I think Corey Horsburgh needs to come in. But I didn't like the 2 names that were linked when there's 3 or 4 others there that are going, "Don't pick me, coach."
Yeah, look, Jeremiah Nanai only had 6 runs himself, and he missed he's credited online as missing 4 tackles, but just because you don't touch someone, you don't get missed with it. Like you don't get credited with a missed tackle. But his defensive reads were absolutely atrocious. He didn't cover gaps that he was supposed to. Moses and Cleary were just running through him like he didn't exist. Yeah, he's the one for me that if I had to pick out of those 2, I think it's really harsh. But if you're looking at it on pure numbers, Bo Fermor didn't get the minutes. He's probably the one that's going to be out the door.
Probably right. Harsh done by. But some good news this week. Sammy Walker's been named to play New South Wales Cup. Of course, missed a whole lot of football year almost through an ACL injury. Horrible stuff for a young player. He's going to come back and play New South Wales Cup, whether he would have. They got the bye this week. I think it's perfect timing. Do you think he comes in after this game? And do you think it makes the Roosters a more credible threat? We've seen some pretty good football from them the last 2 weeks.
I don't like the thing. I saw Sam Walker named at New South Wales Cup, and the first thing I thought was, come back off an ACL tear, and they're playing him on a cow paddock.
Yeah, good point.
But if it's going to go again, it's going to go again, right? Touch wood, because Sam Walker is a great player, and we don't want that to happen. But yes, if Sam Walker comes back 70% of the player he was, that's still better than what Hugo Savala is. I think Hugo Savala will be really unlucky not to retain a spot on the bench, though, because he's earned that. He's earned that, right? Sandon Smith, I've seen people say, "Oh, we've got to keep Hugo and drop Sandon Smith." Like Sandon Smith's not going to be here at the moment. Sandon Smith's the better footballer, and he's a great goal kicker as well. But
Yep, yep.
he's hitting them from everywhere. So that also takes some pressure off Sam Walker, who is the goal kicker, who can turn around and go, you know what? Got a pretty handy goal kicker over there. I can just focus on myself, running the team, kicking, passing. A lot of traffic's going to be run his way. I think it's a great move. I think, you know, this is a good sign because Sam Walker is a star of our game. He's a
Yep.
young star, and he's going to be the next Queensland Origin halfback. He's a young star of our game, and for him to turn around and go, "Hey, you know what? I'm injured, and New South Wales Cup is not beneath me." You see lots of players come back and turn around and go, "Oh, I'll come back via the bench." But him
Yep.
coming back, going, "I'm coming back via 80 minutes of New South Wales Cup, and we'll see if I need another 80 before I can go into the NRL." That's a great sign of maturity from the kid, and I think Trent Robertson nailed that.
Absolutely agreed. I love the way this has fallen on a bye week because I think if he wasn't named if for first grade, I think a lot of eyes would be on him. I wouldn't have known about this unless the great mate of the show, AJ, had mentioned it. I also think, and it's rare that you'll find me say this, I think putting him with Chad Townsend is a really good idea because this kid's going to be, it's hard to come back from an injury, especially one of such significance. Chad's been there, he's done it. He's played 280 games, played about 6 good ones in that, but 6 more than you and me put together. So I think that is gonna help, and I also think the fact that he's playing at, like, Kellyville or something, not in front of a big crowd, you just go about it. He can get ready, he can go through, he can play half an hour and get play come off, and no one's gonna say, "Oh, is he injured or has he been hooked?" No, that was just a plan. No one's gonna see it, mate. I'll be watching on Bar TV because 'cause I'm interested in it, but 99% of fans won't even know how to watch this game. Look, I think it's brilliant for Roosters fans to get excited. We're going to see what they got in the future. You know, he and Sabala, Smith, 2 of them are going to be there. Obviously, there's a pretty handy number 7 rumored to come in, but we'll see how that all goes out. But Sam Walker's not the only one returning this week. Reece Walsh is back. Jacob Kiraz, both with origin connotations potentially, although Kiraz probably fallen behind Zach Lomax now. Sione Katoa for Cronulla, a few other players coming back. You see any big improvements there? I think all 3 improved the teams where they're at. And Reece Walsh, can he do enough to play Origin? Because Kalen Ponga turned in a stinker in Origin 1. I think Reece Walsh needs to get back in there.
Yeah, I think we discussed at length on Outlaws on what could happen for the Queensland team, so let's not go to death in it now, but it is good to see Reece Walsh back. Despite what your thoughts are about him, he's an entertaining player. Eyes turn on him the same way they do for Kalen Ponga, because 50% of the people want to see him have an absolute blinder and 50% of the people want to slate him, right? I don't know where you fall on this occasion, but I really like watching Reece Walsh play. I think he's a unique character. Kid's a great story, and he's a really good footballer. And I think if he comes back in form, he's got 2 weeks to impress. He takes Kalen Ponga's spot, no doubt about that. I think a big inclusion for Cronulla is Sione Katoa because we were staring down the barrel of Mawini Harodi and who on the wings. So Katoa, might be back a little bit early. It was a pretty nasty shoulder injury, but boy, I'm glad to see him back.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think, it's good to get these players back. It sucks when people go down for injuries. But on the flip side now, we've seen that the Warriors have lost Mitch Barnett for the year. So, yeah, it's when a player comes back from an injury, and especially a long-term injury, it's great to see him back.
Certainly is. Reece Walsh immediately changes the dynamic of Brisbane, who've been awful. I think they lost 6 or 7 or 5 or 6, something ridiculous. Like they are a bad football team. I had to move them way down in the rankings that Terry absolutely lives by. Even though I still think they're a handy team, their form's crap. And you throw the one of the best young fullbacks in, it changes everything. I think you'll see them improve instantly. I think if Reece Walsh has a lights out game, he plays Origin because, quite frankly, he has to. Reece Katoa, yeah, I love it in. I never thought I'd say those words, and I'm happy to see Katoa back. Not because I don't like him, but because we're noted Stone Street fans. I just think Katoa is going to mean so much against a pretty handy wing combination of DWZ and RTS for the Warriors. Kiraz is a huge in physically and just what he does. Everyone goes, "Oh, he's a super coach stat patter." That's because he's making 200 meters and breaking 8 tackles and scoring tries. Oh no, these things get super coach points. Ridiculous. Whoever said that, delete your account. It's good to see this big influx of players. There were others named. I just wrote these because they were fun ones to talk about. But it's shaping up as a pretty exciting round of football, mate.
Yeah.
What isn't exciting though is Tom Turbo is out again. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Jake Travojevic has been held back, I think again. I'm okay with anything concussion wise. Look, I don't get it. I mean, you know what the doctors say you got to go with, obviously, but I'm happy with him taking an extra week. It's come out, broke in about half an hour before we hit record, that both are in negotiations with Manly, and Turbo's pondering that, their words, not mine, a potential England move.
Yeah, look, if there's one thing a hamstring hates, it's a cold night, and he's going to get plenty of them over there.
Yes, you're right.
I think Turbo needs to just bite the bullet and say, I need to play in the centres. If I'm going to play for Manly, I'm going to play in the centres. And he talked about his value, and he wanted to take a pay cut to stay at Manly to keep, so Manly could get better players in, right? There's not many better players out there than a fully fit Tom Trbojevic. Tom, you want to stay fit? Go and play in the centres. Legitimately, go and play in the centres. Move Ruben Garrick back over to the wing. Ewan Cooler in the centres, Lehigh Hopewadi, who's the future of that club, at fullback, and that all of a sudden is one of the best backlines in the competition. And Tom, you can run around the field and you can support play and you can do what you did in Origin, but you don't have to be forced to chase a 40-20 down. You don't have to be forced to make a cover-saving tackle because you're only on your side of the field on defense. You're not forced to do those quick bursts of running quick bursts of speed and running into the in goals to try and knock a ball dead because you're the fullback. Save your hamstrings, mate. Bite your pride. Play in the centres. Notice how I use pride about Manly there as well. But
Very
stay
fair.
in the centres. Stay at Manly. Finish there. And you, mate, no doubt about it. He'll end up in like the NRL team of the year in the centres as well because he's awesome. I don't know.
He,
I'd love to see him over in England. Leeds need a fullback.
yeah, look, it would be a downright shame. Like, obviously, the Cronulla fan wants only
Like
bad
just
things to
just
happen.
before this, if he goes to England, he is $.0.000000001 to win the Man of Steel.
On one leg.
Yeah,
Like, he's too
we
good.
walk
It's
backwards.
I hope he stays at Manly, and I want him to be fit because, like you said, he's one of the best players in the game, and he's an Origin star. He's a star for the Kangaroos. He walks in any team in the competition. People are going to say, "Oh, it's not that different," etc., moving to the centres. Moving to 5'8" extended Matt Moylan's career 3 or 4 years.
Mhm,
At fullback, couldn't stay fit.
mhm.
As soon as he moved into 5'8" and stopped the lateral movement, now don't get me wrong, you're getting run at, you're going to make more tackles, but it's easier to take something front on than it is to turn, and your body's just like, come on, we've been doing this for 10 years, no more. I hope he re-signs, and I hope he goes into the centres. I also think him going to the centres will mean that they can go to the NRL and offer him a reduced contract, and the NRL say, "Nah, you're taking the mick here," because I know he came forward and said that he's willing to negotiate and come down because he feels like he owes it to Manly for being unavailable.
Mhm.
And the NRL said, "No, you can't do that. That's ridiculous." And that's completely fair. I agree. If he goes to the centres, though, not many centres are paid fullback money. I think they can get away with that. And I also think Jake Trbojevic, look, he's a heart and soul of that club. They love him mostly. He's on about 800K or close to $1 million.
Hate your haircut.
Downright ridiculous. He has to half that and stay for 2 years. He's another one that I want to see end up at Manly because, look, we saw the Stewarts, they were Manly, and now it's the Trbojeviches. And Ben's come real good. He might be the most informed of the three at the moment by default,
'Cause he's
being
the
the
only one
design.
playing.
Well, yes. But I want Manly to do bad, but I want the Turbos to do well. So I hope they both re-sign. I hope the NRL does look and say, look, you aren't the player you were. You can fall back. You move to centre, etc., etc. That's one to watch, mate. Another one to watch. Brisbane Broncos reportedly signed Grant Anderson from the Storm. Boy, he's playing well for Melbourne. They want to keep him. Also re-signed Katoni Staggs. The club will not confirm either. What's going on?
Well, the last time we spoke about this on Grant Anderson, I Googled it, and Craig Bellamy in April turned around and said, it sucks that we've lost Grant Anderson. He's gone home.
Mhm.
So what you can say is Grant Anderson's not going to be at Melbourne next year because Bellamy's confirmed that. I think it's the deep, dark secret that he is going to end up at Brisbane. I think Brisbane just need to do some book calculation at the moment. And you know what? With the way they're in at the moment and the way that he always holds them to hostage, maybe it's not a bad thing that Payne Haas is exploring the market early.
True. I've also got here Adam Reynolds has been officially been offered another
1
year.
year, yep.
Yeah. I think that's smart because I still think he's got a fair amount of talent in him. But the NRL aren't going to let you offer him 300K, and you got Ezra Mam and Ben Hunt there in the halves. Now, obviously, Ben Hunt can play 9. He's played there at a high level. I think with those and Walsh, they're one of the best spines in the competition. Except on every second week when Reynolds is missing, or Hunt's missing, or Ezra's off doing what he's doing, or Reese is missing. Katoni Staggs is reportedly going to sign an $800,000 contract. That's the one the Broncos need to go. Grant Anderson's going to be on half that. And then you go to Colbo and you say, what do you want? You can't carry Katoni Staggs on $850K and want to re-sign Payne Haas, who's going to be upwards of $1 million. And you got that monster, Xavier Willison, who's an absolute freak in the making. Look at their back rowers, they're going to need to upgrade there, with the greatest respect to both of those. I evidently they've verbally agreed to re-sign Staggs. Mate, I verbally agreed to sleep with several models tonight. It ain't going to happen. They should say, you know what? Go see what the Roosters are offering and come back when you're willing to discuss.
Yeah, that's if there's the one contract that they should try and get out of, it is Katoni Staggs. And he had a couple of games this year where you looked at it and you went, man, Katoni's on. Like, he's on, and he's going to dominate this season of the centers. And now you watch him and you're just like, you're overrated. Like, you really are. You're at that point now where you're overrated. And like, I want him to do well, because he's another one who's really fun. And he, like, on his day, no one can get the better of Katoni Staggs. If he wakes up in the morning and goes, you know what, I'm going out there tonight, I'm going to be the best player on the park. He is the best player on the park. And that's it. But he doesn't do that. Sometimes he just looks like he wakes up and he goes, God, I'm here again. Why am I doing this?
Which is fine for 500K, but not 800.
Oh, it's fine. He's an $800,000 footballer who's got a $300,000 effort.
Yeah, he's just so, like, I put he and Bradman Best as very similar players, right? And I think Staggs on his day is better than almost anyone. Probably the big 2 or 3. But Bradman Best is very good most weeks and excellent some weeks. Staggs is excellent occasionally. I just think that something's gonna have to give.
Yeah, something's gonna give.
Walsh ain't cheap. Carrigan ain't cheap. Haas ain't cheap. We've seen that contracts don't mean anything. Maybe Payne Haas goes, I'm gonna get $1.5 million from the Bears. Why don't you let me go pinch hit a season at Penrith for that? Or something's gonna happen at Brisbane. But what's not gonna happen is them confirming these deals. How many times did we see Reece Walsh re-sign? I don't even know if that's official yet either.
Oh, well, that's a Brisbane problem.
It is. It is.
Hey, everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Knock On podcast, brought to you by the good people of Zero Tackle, your one-stop shop for everything rugby league. They've got news, transfers, contract situations, rumours, got the best independent journalists who give you power rankings that don't make sense. 20-1 that happened on a Monday this week, a Tuesday morning. 5 things, 5 thoughts, whatever it is, 5 landing spots for any players, and they all come from Dan Nichols. What do you got for us this week, Dan?
Well, mate, not much. I'm taking a couple of days off on the fly. Scott doesn't know this yet, but I guess he finds out when you guys do. No, look, there's been so much breaking news. We're just going to see where everything lays today and reconvene tomorrow. But I'll tell you what. I
want a Brad Fittler hit piece on my desk at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
I was going to say, I've actually circled Brad Fittler. So, Scotty, if you're watching, be warned, that is coming.